Okay, so you're here with us on the deep dive because you want to get up to speed fast, right? On the latest and greatest tech.
That's right.
And today that means, well, we're diving into the world of graphics cards.
Yeah.
Specifically, this new ASUS TUF gaming GeForce RTX 5080. We're going to see if this is really the real deal for, serious users out there like yourself.
Yeah, if you're thinking about upgrading for, high-end gaming, or maybe you're doing some content creation work, we're going to see what this card is all about.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
And we've got a great review here. It's going to be our guide for this deep dive.
Our blueprint.
And we're going to see what makes this RTX 5080 tick and if it's worth your hard-earned money.
Right.
Right off the bat, this review throws some pretty impressive specs at us.
Sure.
It's talking about 16 GB of GDDR7 memory.
Ooh, yeah. That's fast.
And PCIe 5.0.
Mm-hmm.
And a bunch of different ports. You get 2 HDMI and 3 DisplayPorts.
Yeah, you're covered.
And they're really pushing this idea of military-grade components and this patented cooling system.
Right out of the gate, they're trying to grab your attention.
It definitely gets your attention.
Yeah, and it seems like they're aiming for, that top-tier performance, but also, that reliability that you want in a card like this. Something that's going to last and not let you down.
Right.
And that's 16 GB of GDDR7.
Hmm.
It's not just about having a bigger number.
Right.
This new type of memory means you can move a lot more data through the system much, much faster.
Right.
Think of it like, widening a highway to get all those cars through.
I like that analogy.
And this could be crucial for games today that are super demanding, especially at high resolutions like 4K. But it's also future-proofing you a bit.
Makes sense.
For the games coming out in the next couple of years, and for professional applications where you're dealing with, huge amounts of data.
Right. So beyond the raw power under the hood,
Yeah.
let's talk about how this thing actually looks and feels.
Sure.
The review keeps mentioning this rugged, military-inspired aesthetic.
It's interesting because they seem to have gone for this tough, almost utilitarian look,
Right.
but they've also combined it with what they call a premium feel.
It doesn't sound very pretty.
Well, they talk about, brushed metal and textured accents.
Okay.
So it sounds like there's some attention to detail in the design.
It's not just slapping some parts together.
Right, exactly. It's like they've thought about the look and feel of this thing.
Gotcha.
It's not just about what's on the inside.
And, it's not just for show either, right?
Huh?
The review really connects that ASUS's reputation for making durable products
Right.
with their use of these so-called military-grade components.
When you hear that term military grade,
Yeah, what does that even mean for the average user?
it usually means that those components have gone through some really rigorous testing.
Okay.
They're designed to handle things like really high temperatures and sudden changes in voltage.
Right.
Stuff that could really mess up a normal component.
So it's like peace of mind, basically.
It's about knowing that this card is more likely to last longer.
Right.
And when you're spending this kind of money on a graphics card, you want to know it's going to be a good investment.
Absolutely, yeah.
You don't want to have to replace it after a year or two.
Okay, so we've established that it looks tough and it's built tough.
Right.
But a card like this, cranking out all this performance,
Yeah.
it's got to generate some heat.
Sure.
And that patented cooling technology that the review keeps mentioning,
Mm-hmm.
how important is that really in practical terms?
Oh, it's essential, especially if you're pushing this card to its limits.
Yep.
For smooth 4K gaming.
Yeah.
Or if you're doing like really demanding content creation work.
Right.
And they actually call this cooling system a standout feature. So it's clearly something they were impressed by.
Interesting. So how does it actually work? Is it some kind of crazy new tech?
Well, it sounds like it's a combination of, advanced fan designs
Okay.
and these precision engineered heat sinks.
Right.
So it's like a really well thought out system where the fans are designed to move air very efficiently across this heat sink to pull the heat away from those important components.
So it's kind of like an orchestra of different parts working together
Yeah, exactly. It's not just one thing. It's the whole system working in harmony.
to keep things cool.
Right.
And the review says that it maintains low temperatures even when the card's under a heavy workload, which is fantastic.
Yeah, that's what you want.
But for a lot of people, the noise level is just as important.
Oh, absolutely, especially gamers.
Does it sound like a jet engine taking off when it's working hard?
Thankfully not according to the review. They specifically say that it stays quiet even under load, so you don't have to worry about, this loud, distracting fan noise.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah, that's a big plus for a lot of people.
All right, let's get to the heart of the matter here.
Sure.
Performance.
Yeah. the meat and potatoes.
Exactly. So the review says this card is built for both gamers and content creators.
Right, a real workhorse.
And a lot of that has to do with that 16 GB of GDDR7 memory we talked about and the NVIDIA architecture with DLSS4 RT support. Now, for those of us who aren't, hardcore PC builders,
Right.
what does all that actually mean in terms of, like, real-world performance?
Okay, so basically what's really cool here is that they're trying to make a card that can handle both, those demanding games and the needs of creative professionals.
Right.
So that high-speed memory is crucial for those games that have, massive textures, especially if you're playing at high resolutions.
Right.
And the NVIDIA architecture, that's like the brain of the card that provides the processing power for those, really complex tasks like rendering and video editing.
Gotcha.
So it's like a multi-tool that can tackle a bunch of different jobs.
Okay, and specifically for the gamers out there.
Yeah.
The review talks about it handling demanding games at 4K resolution without breaking a sweat.
Oh, yeah. That's the holy grail for a lot of gamers, right?
Right, like ultra settings, smooth frame rates, the whole 9 yards.
Exactly. And they even say the games that would have brought older high-end cards to their knees now run flawlessly.
That's impressive.
Yeah, it's a real step up.
And this DLSS4 RT.
Okay.
Not even going to try to pronounce the whole thing.
Deep learning super sampling.
Yeah, let's just stick with DLSS4 RT.
Sounds good.
What is that, and how does that actually make my gaming experience better?
So DLSS is NVIDIA's technology. And basically what it does is use artificial intelligence to make lower resolution images look like they're higher resolution.
Okay.
So it's a really clever way to boost your frame rates without sacrificing too much visual quality.
So it's like cheating the system in a good way.
Yeah, exactly. And the RT part of that probably refers to ray tracing,
Right.
which is this fancy rendering technique that makes the lighting and reflections in games look much more realistic.
Oh, wow.
So DLSS4 RT is basically a way to improve both the looks and the performance of your games.
So it's like having your cake and eating it, too.
Exactly. And the review really makes it clear that this is a cutting-edge feature.
Right? And it's not just for gamers either.
No, for content creators, this stuff can be a game changer too.
How so?
Well, the review talks about, things like faster rendering times for videos and 3D projects, and a more responsive experience when you're editing those complex scenes.
Okay, so it's a real time saver.
Yeah, it can make a huge difference in your workflow.
And the review mentions benchmarks that put this RTX 5080 at the top of its class.
Right up there with the big boys.
Even beating out some more expensive cards.
Which is saying something.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, and they also highlight the power efficiency of this card, which is really interesting.
What do you mean?
So basically they're saying that even though it's super powerful, it doesn't use a ton of energy.
Okay, so it's not going to, like, spike your electricity bill.
Right, exactly.
Right.
It's pretty efficient for what it can do.
That's good to know.
Yeah, definitely a plus.
All right, let's move on to connectivity.
Okay.
The review emphasizes this PCIe 5.0 support.
Right.
Why should I care about that?
Well, this is all about future-proofing. So while the cards we have right now might not use all the bandwidth that PCIe 5.0 offers,
Right.
having that capability built in means that this card is ready for the next generation of motherboards and other high-speed components.
So it's like thinking ahead.
Exactly. You don't want to be stuck with a card that's bottlenecked by an older connection standard.
Gotcha. So it's an investment in the future.
Exactly. It's about longevity.
And for connecting your displays, it's got 2 HDMI ports and 3 DisplayPort connectors.
So you've got options.
That seems like plenty for hooking up multiple screens.
Yeah, and more and more people are using multiple monitors these days.
For sure, for gaming and for productivity.
Exactly. And having all those ports directly on the card means you don't need to mess around with adapters.
That's always a pain.
It is. It just makes things easier.
Now for the tinkerers out there.
Yeah, the folks who like to push things to the limit.
The review talks about overclocking.
Right.
Is this a card that you can actually overclock?
It seems so, yeah. They mentioned that it comes with a factory overclock right out of the box.
Okay, so it's already boosted a bit.
Exactly. But for those who want to squeeze out even more performance,
Right.
they say there's still headroom for additional overclocking.
So you can really push it.
You can, if you're comfortable with that kind of thing.
And ASUS has its own software to make that whole process easier, right?
Yeah, they do, which is great because it makes overclocking much more accessible even if you're not an expert.
And importantly, the review reminds us that those military-grade components we talked about,
Right.
they actually help with stability when you're overclocking.
Yeah, that makes sense because if you're cranking up the power, you need to make sure everything can handle it.
Right, and that ties back into the cooling system, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Good cooling is crucial for maintaining those higher clock speeds without things overheating.
Right, so it all comes full circle.
It does. It's all connected.
Okay, so let's come back to the big question.
The million-dollar question.
Is this a good buy?
Yeah.
The review talks about value and future-proofing. We've already talked about the future-proofing aspect with the PCIe 5.0.
Right.
But what about the overall value proposition?
Well, it seems like the value here comes from that combination of top-notch performance and the fact that this card is built to last.
Okay.
And that 16 GB of GDDR7 memory, that's a big part of it.
Right.
It's not just about keeping up with today's games. It's about being ready for the more demanding games and applications that are coming down the line.
So it's an investment that will hopefully pay off for a while.
That's the idea. Yeah. It's about getting the most bang for your buck over the long term.
The review does mention that it comes with a premium price tag.
Sure.
So what's the justification for that higher cost?
They basically say that you're paying for that top-tier performance,
Okay.
the durable build quality, and all those advanced features like that high-end cooling system and the DLSS4 RT capabilities.
So you're paying for quality and longevity.
Yeah. And the peace of mind that comes with knowing that this card should last you a good long time.
It's not a budget option.
No, it's definitely an investment.
Okay, so it's not just about having the best performance right now.
Yeah.
It's about being ready for what's coming next.
Exactly. It's about staying ahead of the curve.
All right, so final thoughts.
Yeah.
What's it actually like to use this card on a day-to-day basis?
Well, the reviewer seems to have had a really positive experience. They really emphasize this idea of a satisfying experience.
Oh, okay.
You know, if that balance of raw power and robust construction and innovative features.
It sounds like a well-rounded package.
Yeah, it does. And they also specifically mention that it's easy to install, which is always a plus.
Especially for people who are new to building PCs.
Absolutely. It can be a daunting task for some people.
And they mention that quiet operation again and the flexible display connectivity.
Yeah, all those things contribute to a smooth and hassle-free experience.
It's all about making your life easier.
Exactly.
And the reviewer really wraps things up nicely.
How so?
They call it a formidable card that delivers on its promises.
I like that.
Yeah, they're basically saying that it lives up to the hype.
Right, it's not all smoke and mirrors.
And they really emphasize that blend of cutting-edge technology with that durable and appealing design.
Sounds like a winner.
And the final thought from the review.
Yeah, hit us with it.
They say it's a compelling package of future-proof features and exceptional performance,
Nice and concise.
making it a standout choice for both hardcore gamers and creative professionals.
So they're really driving home that message of versatility.
Right. It's not just a one-trick pony.
It's a multi-tool.
Exactly.
Let's see.
So to sum it all up for you, our deep dive into this ASUS TUF Gaming RTX 5080 based on this review has revealed a graphics card that's not just about top-of-the-line performance.
Right.
It's also about being built to last. It's got a really effective cooling system.
Keeping things nice and frosty.
It's got the latest connectivity standards for future-proofing.
Yeah, you're set for a while.
And plenty of options for connecting your displays.
All your screens covered.
Now, it is on the higher end of the price spectrum. But the review suggests that that investment could be worth it
Right.
in terms of longevity and sustained high performance.
It's not just about today, it's about tomorrow as well.
Exactly, and that leads us to a question for you.
All right, let's hear it.
Considering what you need right now in terms of gaming or content creation and thinking about your future upgrade plans,
Right.
does the ASUS TUF Gaming RTX 5080 align with your needs and expectations?
Food for thought.
It is food for thought.
Yeah.
We've given you a lot to chew on in this deep dive.
Old buffet of information.
Exactly, and hopefully it's helped you cut through that initial wave of information overload.
Yeah, demystifying the tech jargon.
Exactly, and now you've got a solid foundation to, explore those more specific details or compare it with other options.
Right. You're well equipped to make an informed decision.
Exactly. So thanks for joining us on this deep dive,
Always a pleasure.
and we'll catch you next time.
See you then.